Hello and thank you for joining me today for day 4 of Creep on June, hosted by Tracie Fox. And I just want to say thank you so much to all of my new subscribers that have come over since I started doing this. I am absolutely blown away by how many new people I've got over the last few days. So I appreciate you all, and if you've been with me for a while, then I appreciate you for coming back, because I absolutely love having you all here and seeing what I made, and it just means I'm not talking to myself, which I would do anyway, so it's fine. Now, if you do enjoy these videos and you haven't already subscribed, then please do hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you get notified whenever I put up a new video, and please also consider giving me a thumbs up on this video as well. If this is the first of my Creep on June videos that you're watching, on day 1 I went through what I've come up with as sort of an inspiration for this Poe theme challenge. So if you missed that video, I've linked the playlist in the description, so please do check them out and hear the first parts of this story. So day 3. Ah, broken is the golden bowl, let the bell toll. A saintly soul floats on the Stygian river, the mystery which binds me still. Our today's quote is a mashup of Lenore and Alone. Lenore representing a love lost, and then a lost love even, and then the loneliness he feels after losing her, and really just ever since his childhood. Poe experienced a lot of loneliness. So day 3. Edgar awakes and can hear the pelting of the rain against the glass before he even sees it out of the window. Well, it was a good thing I'd already decided to stay here and read today, he thinks. He hears a sweeping sound coming from outside his door, and he gathers up his still damp clothes from yesterday and politely pops his head round the door and asks the maid if it would be possible to have his clothes dried out for him. She says that it would be a pleasure, and she will even clean them for him. However, she does have the afternoon off today, so he won't be able to have them back until the next day, if that's okay. Edgar is delighted. He can't remember the last time he had his clothes freshly laundered for him, or at all. He decides not to ask about the jam yet. He's too embarrassed, handing over his mucky, threadbare clothes to start discussing preserves. As well as the oak desk in his room, in the other corner by the bookcase he noticed last night, there's an armchair. A big old leather piece that looks perfect for his day of literature. He spends the day reading Bram Stoker's Dracula, conjuring up images of the main protagonist, Count Dracula, and the other characters, Van Helsing and Mina and Jonathan Harker, visiting the Count's castle. And can I just say, sidebar a sec, I know that Dracula came out in the late 1800s and Edgar died way before that, but we're playing pretend. And in my world, these books and everything already exist. Okay, good, let's continue. Edgar wonders what Whitby is like. He checks the books in the bookcase, and indeed there is an atlas. He finds England and he looks for Whitby, and there it is, almost exactly directly on the opposite side of the part of England that he's on. Edgar's staying over on the west coast, and Whitby appears to be on the east coast. Well, there'll be no popping there for a day's outing, but that old castle I've seen in the distance looks like where I imagine the Count lived, Edgar muses to himself. He goes back to the book and spends a wonderful morning engrossed in the adventures within the pages. Once he's finished with his copy of Dracula, he peruses more of the bookcase's books. There's books by Nathaniel Hawthorne, one called Wakefield. He's sure he saw that place name in the atlas. He checks and there it is. I wonder if it's the same place, he thinks. It can't be. Nathaniel Hawthorne is from Salem in Massachusetts. He'll check it at another time because something else caught his eye. Little Arthur's History of England by Maria Colcott. He begins to read. It's clearly a book for children, but has a wonderful charm and is very educational about this country he's ended up in. It's lively and filled with illustrations, demystifying historical events. How wonderful, Edgar thinks as he devours the pages, studying the pictures so intently. By now the day is getting on, and Edgar's stomach starts to remind him that he hasn't put anything in it since last night. Plus, didn't the maid say she was off for the rest of the day? No delicious nighttime supper tonight. Edgar decides to brave going downstairs and find in the kitchen. hoping not to be seen, not because he thinks he's doing anything wrong. No, he has been told on multiple occasions he can go and help himself, but just because he's actually quite shy and doesn't really enjoy engaging in small talk, and isn't really in the mood to engage in big talk either. He tentatively walks down the staircase and into the kitchen, and luckily no one is there. He finds the pantry and looks for some bread. There's the butter too, and some cheese. He hasn't had cheese for such a long time. He grabs a plate, pops everything on it, and looks to see if any of that jam is about. He can't see any, so maybe it is from the maid herself. What a wonderful woman. He can't see any whiskey either, shame, but he does find a teapot and some tea leaves and makes himself some tea. He notices a golden bowl on a shelf and sees that there's a crack through it. There's something about it that reminds him of his lost wife. Perhaps it's the fact that even though it's broken, it's still beautiful. Just like even though she is dead, she will always be beautiful in his eyes. All of a sudden, Edgar feels very alone. He gives himself a shake off and gathers all of his bits and pieces, loading them onto a tray. He carefully heads back to his room just as he hears the front door opening. Luckily, he wasn't spotted. He sits down in his room and tucks into his tea. Delicious, and what lovely cheese. Once he's suitably full, he sits back at his desk for another evening of writing about vampires and vampire hunters and the things that he learned about in the history book, and sketching the things he's writing about. He keeps going back to that bowl though, and his wife who left him for death so young. A few hours later, right on time, the crow comes back and sits on the windowsill. He shouts his caw. He taps on the window lattice. Edgar opens the window a crack, enough to fit his hand through, and places a crumb of bread he had left over near where the crow stood. It wasn't scared, it just stood there, still, waiting until Edgar closed the window, and then it hopped over to the bread and gobbled it up. It sounded off another caw, almost in thanks, and then flew away. So that's what you were after. You wanted to share my supper. He chuckles and goes back to his typewriter and drawings until he can keep his eyes open no longer. So I hope you enjoyed that. So we've got the armchair over here, excuse me, the armchair over here. Clearly it's a full moon, and a little wax seal up in the corner, all of the books that surround him, and the quote there. And this is the page I showed you yesterday, but now I've popped that on it. And then we've got Lenore in her wedding dress and the golden bowl, and there's Edgar all alone on the side of the cliff. And here's a little vampire gallery of Dracula, just as Edgar thinks that he is throughout his life or death. And then we've got this postcard to Count Dracula, and it's via airmail because it's on a bat, and I thought that was funny. And this is another little quote from Alone. And all I loved alone. That's a Release the Craft in words. And on the back here, I have written out the majority of Alone in the sort of scrawled brown ink again. And then this is the bit of map. So you've got Britain over here, tiny Britain here, and then the United States over here where he's come from. And then that just says books, and then there's some umbrellas there because it's been raining. And in the background here we've got just on the back of the page just bits of Lenore, and then a little bat in the corner. And so that is day 4, the little number 4 there. I'd forgotten to put my number 3 on that one, number 3, so I just popped it there. So that's day 4, and I hope you enjoyed today's chapter of Edgar's story and what I made. If you did, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on that bell, and I would love it if you would leave me a comment as well. And I will be back tomorrow for day 5. Bye!